Sports HQ presented by Capital One. The Broncos will have another fresh face under centre this season with Russell Wilson. Since Peyton Manning retired in 2015, the Broncos have started 11 different quarterbacks, which is tied with Washington for the most in the NFL in that span. Since Seattle drafted Russell Wilson in 2012, they've started 2 different quarterbacks with Wilson and Geno Smith, the fewest in the NFL in that span. And here's a look at the starting quarterbacks in Denver since Peyton Manning. Trevor Siemian, the only one to post a winning record with 13 wins and 11 losses. The Broncos will no doubt be hoping for better luck this season with the new face of their franchise taking over in Week 1, which is now just 61 days away from kicking off.
The Kansas City Chiefs have owned the AFC West, winning the division 6 years running. But might that tide be changing? After a stunning loss in the AFC Championship, the Chiefs made perhaps the most surprising move of the offseason, trading away 3-time first-team All-Pro wideout Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. They also let one of their team leaders, Tyrann Mathieu, walk in free agency. They did get younger on that side of the ball, focusing on defense in the draft. But one question remains to be seen following the Hill trade. Do they still strike the same fear in opponents without their most explosive weapon?
It's definitely going to be different in a sense, but I feel like we still have a strong foundation of guys that have been here.
It was an offseason full of blockbuster trades in the AFC West as the Denver Broncos went all in, acquiring Russell Wilson, hoping he can recreate the same magic as Peyton Manning did in recent years past.
You got to set the tone every day. If you want to win, you want to win it all. You want to be the best in the world as a team and everything else. There's no other option.
In SoCal, the Chargers might have missed out on the playoffs, but they continue to stockpile premier talent, adding Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson to form what has the potential to be a great defense. But this team will go as far as Justin Herbert takes them. And if he takes another leap in year 3, this team could be a Super Bowl contender.
We didn't make the playoffs, and it's unfortunate, but it's all about how we react.
In the desert, while the Raiders reached the postseason for the first time in 5 seasons, there were major changes on the roster and in the front office. Josh McDaniels got a second chance as a head coach, and new GM Dave Ziegler wasted no time getting to work, signing Chandler Jones in free agency and acquiring Devontae Adams in a blockbuster trade, which gave his quarterback Derek Carr a true #1 option. As Ziegler also gave Carr the long-term security he was looking for with a new contract.
We feel like we can be one of those teams to compete for a championship.
The AFC West might be the toughest division in the league. Which offseason move will have the biggest on-field impact? This is a race that might not be settled until Week 18.
Well, here's a look at the AFC West win totals. All teams are projected to go over 8 wins, according to our friends over at Caesars Sportsbook. And the odds to win the division, it's the Chiefs with the shortest odds at plus 155. So that's what the bookies think, but let's see what our Sportsline analyst Emery Hunt thinks. Emery, there's so much buzz around the Broncos heading into the new season, so we'll start with them. Their win total is set at 10. Are you taking the over or the under here?
I'm going to take the over. I love what they were able to do this offseason. You bring in Russell Wilson, and this was a football team that was really talented in years previous. Even last year, they just couldn't get the consistency from the quarterback position. Now you add a better quarterback in Russell Wilson. They're stacked at wide receiver. We know about Cortland Sutton. They have KJ Hamler coming back. They also have Jerry Jeudy. They drafted Montreal Washington, who upgrades their special teams. And they still have Albert Oberwebenheim at tight end, in addition to Greg Dulcich, who I think is a phenomenal talent. Reminds me a lot of George Kittle. Their offensive line is improving. On defense, they still have a very good secondary led by second-year player Pat Surtain II. So for me, I'm a big fan of what they have in store. I think they're going to be underrated at the inside linebacker position. Jonas Griffin out of Indiana State is a tremendous player. Excited to see him progress this year, and they do get back Josie Jewell. So for me, Denver is a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this division, so I'm going over that 10 number.
All right, so feeling confident in Denver there. Elsewhere, Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs are the favourites to win the division despite losing Tyreek Hill. Their total is set at 10.5. How are you playing this one, Emery?
They still have Pat Mahomes, so I'm still going over. This is a really good excellent football team, in my opinion. When I say football team, I'm talking about on both sides of the ball. And you guys did a great job leading into what they've done in the draft on defense with George Karlaftis, who should be able to add some pass rushing presence on the opposite side of Frank Clark. In the secondary, yes, Trent McDuffie was one of the top-tier corners in the draft, but don't sleep on Brian Cook, who they were able to bring in from Cincinnati. Sort of like what they had in Tyrann Mathieu, can play corner or safety, has great football instincts, and I'm a big fan of what they did in free agency, bringing in Lonnie Johnson. So for me, they improved on the secondary. Their linebacking core should be even better this year. Nick Bolton was outstanding last season, really upgraded their unit, and their offensive line may be the best in the AFC West. So that along with the fact that they lose Tyreek Hill, but they still got Juju Smith-Schuster along with Travis Kelce and some other options out there, Mecole Hardman and company, and Justin Ross, who you also had in the lead in, very underrated, undrafted rookie free agent. They are still one of the best teams in the AFC, let alone the AFC West.
All right, so 2 overs so far. Let's go over to LA. The Chargers, Justin Herbert entering year 3 as their starting quarterback. They also just added star pass rusher Khalil Mack. Their total is set at 10. Is this too high, too low, or just right in your opinion, Emery?
This was one of the more tougher ones I had a difficult time with, because I feel like this team will be better than last year. But unfortunately, they got better in the situation where the Broncos got better. So I'm going to go under here. I think 9 wins is going to be good for the Chargers. I really worry about their run defense. Have they done enough to really improve up front to stop the run? If they can't stop the run, they won't win many games. And if they can avoid those self-inflicted wounds, some come from the coaching staff, whether he's going forward at ill-advised times on 4th down, or your quarterback, Justin Herbert, having a bad game, a clunker. Let's say that game against the Texans. They should have beaten the Texans. Had they won that game, they would have been in the playoffs. So if they could avoid the clunkers and also the ill-advised play calling and situational football errors that they've had, this team can win. Because, again, you have Rashawn Slater at left tackle. You draft Zion Johnson, who, in my opinion, was the best guard in the draft. He's going to help you up front. They bring in Isaiah Spiller. Pairing him up with Austin Eckler gives you a heck of a 1-2 punch in the backfield. So there's a lot to like about the Chargers. I just feel like the division got better also, so I'm putting them under. But, man, if they could split with the Broncos or Chiefs, they could get to 10. So this one I will probably stay away from, but I'm going to go under here just for the sake of the pick.
All right, well, speaking of bringing players in, the Raiders have acquired star wideout Devontae Adams from the Packers, who's now reunited with Derek Carr in Vegas. Their win total for this season is set at 8.5. What's your play here?
This was interesting because I found it fascinating that they win 8.5. But I'm going to go under. I think 8 wins because you have a lot of turnover, new coaching staff and whatnot. I still worry about their defense. How good can they be, bringing in a lot of new pieces, especially on the back end and the secondary. So you wonder, okay, how quickly can they gel defensively? But on offense, yes, you bring in Devontae Adams, but you traded away Brian Edwards. That was supposed to be the key. Now you have a strong 1-2 with, Renfro coming in the slot, but now you don't have Edwards. So you really lose a little bit of that explosive firepower. And Derek Carr is a good quarterback, but he's kind of the AFC version of Kirk Cousins. He's playing a bit inconsistent, good enough to be top 15, but do you really trust him to sustain that success over the course of a season? And again, I'm a Derek Carr fan, but I wonder about the consistency level on both sides of the ball, which is why I had them going under. 8.5 is basically the hook because I do think they'll win 8 games.
All right, then. Finally, the Chiefs, the favourites on paper to win the division, but give us your pick, Emery, to win. Who are you backing here?
I am backing Kansas City. This is still a very strong football team. Great coaching staff. They do a fantastic job in making adjustments. They are still one of the teams that you can hang your hat on to get to the end of the season and out on top. So I'm still looking at them as a Super Bowl contender. And as long as Andy Reid is paired up with Patrick Mahomes, with Eric Bieniemy calling the plays out there, and Steve Spagnuolo's defense consistently getting better as the season goes on, I'm rocking with Kansas City, although they'll get a challenge this